you all. Did anyone hear President Trump's news conference last night? He said, our biggest threat to this election is governors from opposing parties controlling ballots, millions of ballots. Who does that make you think of? So, in the August primary, Michigan had 1.6 million absentee ballots cast. For November, the forecast is more than 3 million. So that's why we're here, to learn how we can protect the vote, counting those ballots. Folks, I'm delighted to introduce you to a man whose resume and work experiences very clearly show how he came to be the fearless warrior poll challenger that he is today. Bob Cushman holds a mechanical engineering degree from Purdue U and has focused his analytical training on everything from captaining and piloting corporate jets to heavy truck and sales engineering. Since retiring, Bob has turned his energies to political activism. He was president of the Northville Republican Club and a coordinator and co-pilot for Senator Patrick Colbeck's campaign for governor. So at 5 a.m. on August 5th, Bob became literally the last man standing as the chief poll challenger at TCF Center in Detroit. I believe Marion Sheridan was there too. Thank you. Based on that experience, Bob filed a legal affidavit with election officials and was interviewed by several national media organizations. He outlined in detail the election improprieties he witnessed that night. We're thrilled to have Bob Cushman here this evening to share a first-hand account of what he saw in Wayne County and what he thinks we can do about it. Please welcome Bob.
Thank you, Joanne. A little bit too kind. Good evening, Patriots. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate that. My name is Bob Cushman. I'd like to introduce my wife, Christine Cushman. Would you stand up, please? Okay, she's going to wave her hand. She's a little shy. That being said, are there any other folks that were in Detroit or Pontiac as challengers on August 4th? One. Marion, where are you? There you are. 2, 3. Okay, I guess that's it. I thought there might have been more from this location, but not. Okay. Well, let me start. My wife and I have been thinking about election integrity for quite some time. This year we decided to do something about it and signed up to be election challengers, also known as poll challengers. We attended the challenger training on Saturday before primary election day and worked at the absentee ballot board, which was conducted on August 4th at the TCF Center, formerly known as Cobo Hall. During the training that we had, we were told to take copious notes and we were told what not to do. Things like don't touch the equipment, don't touch the ballots, don't interfere with the work or the workers that's being done. Our interaction was to work at the, if we had challenges at the supervisory level. I should mention that Marion Sheridan is doing an excellent job, totally excellent at leading this Guard the Vote effort here in Michigan. And I'm going to attempt to identify some of the high points of our challenging day and the after effects. Next slide. We arrived at the TCF Center a few minutes before 7 a.m. and were checked in, sworn as challengers. The paperwork and our training indicated that we were not to have phones or any recording devices, and we were instructed not to leave as we were sequestered until at least 8 p.m. That if we left, we were not going to be allowed to re-enter. We knew that it was strictly prohibited to share any information concerning voting or the processing until at least after 8 p.m. Then it would be okay. We spent the first day of the day asking questions of the supervisory personnel because we really kind of wanted to figure out what was going on. We hadn't really been trained in the process per se at that point. And I'm pleased to say that everybody was very friendly and cooperative down there, so there wasn't any negativity from the people there. One of the things that we quickly learned was that there are 3 stations at each ballot board. Well, maybe we should back up. A ballot board is 3 to 4 precincts, and there's something like 500, correct me if I'm wrong, Marion, but I think it's 503 precincts and 134, 137 ballot boards that define Detroit. So the first station involved checking each return envelope to see that it was sealed, it had a name and a date and a signature. We were told that the signatures had previously been checked, but we were not allowed to go to the location where it was being performed. I am kind of suspicious that this claim has validity, but I can't prove it either way. And the fact that we were denied access does not seem legal or correct. It certainly is a clear violation of the transparency that is supposed to be present in the voting process. More on that subject later. Station number 2 was supposed to check off the name in the poll book, record the ballot number for that name. After that was done, then the ballot was sent to station number 3, where the ballot was opened, the tab was separated from the ballot, and then the ballot itself was sent to the tabulator for counting. According to Election Law 168.767, a ballot was to be rejected if the signature did not match, the elector was dead as of election day, or any other reason noted in the law. None of the 76,000 ballots processed by the Detroit Absent Voter County Boards was checked for signatures on August 4th or August 5th in the Detroit Absent Voting County Boards, which is where we were sequestered. And like I said before, I'm kind of suspicious to whether it was completely done. We don't know. We're going to be seeking access to that in the future, especially in November. During the day, we noticed some voting boards were processing ballots without the poll books. This is strictly prohibited. We brought this to the attention of the supervisors, and Mr. Haygood, who was the acting director of the 600 to 700 election personnel in the Detroit absent voting boards. When we questioned this practice, the further processing of ballots stopped at several tables. This faulty process, is troubling on several levels. Based on my observations in Detroit in August and my many conversations regarding election law in Michigan, I can state with 100% accuracy that the single best thing that we ordinary citizens can do is to volunteer by the hundreds or perhaps thousands to work as election workers or work as election challengers in November. We Detroit election challengers prove to ourselves and others that it is possible to keep the election process on a fair and transparent path when we are there watching, asking, and challenging every aspect of the process. Unfortunately, we only had about 15 to 20 challengers in Detroit that day and only one at 2 a.m. So obviously we need a lot more. We want to have more than 100 challengers present during the entire time. This may very well require 4 to 6 shifts of 125 challengers for Detroit alone, because we know we're going to get a lot more ballots in November than we had at the primary. Oakland County and Flint are probably the number 2 and number 3 locations that we're also looking at to see if we can't man it. During the course of the day, we noticed that there were many absent voting county boards that had no people. We heard via the grapevine that there were 75 workers that did not show up to work. That being said, I would still estimate there was probably at least 600 workers in that room. During the course of the day, we noticed some boards overloaded with work, and some boards were simply sitting there waiting for ballots to show up. Seemed to be a very disorganized and relatively inefficient process. Apparently by 7:30 p.m. or so, there had been some tired and discouraged workers that had simply left, even though a major workload remained. That fact seemed to cause the management to offer a $100 bonus for staying. When they verbalized that offer of the bonus, it caused quite a cheer from all the workers in the room, and they seemed quite a bit more productive for the next several hours. The pace slowed again by 10 or 11 p.m., and once again, tired and discouraged workers began to leave. At about 12:30 a.m., just after midnight, the PA came alive as the supervision verbally chastised, expressed their displeasure at the workers that were leaving. They threatened to revoke the promised bonus. I think I heard some shouts going on in the room, but I could not make out what was being said. It obviously was a very discouraging picture. Perhaps the single most dramatic, most egregious event occurred at 2 a.m. For accuracy, I'll quote from my signed, notarized legal affidavit. Quote, at approximately 2 a.m. on August 5th, 2020, a soft male voice from the PA system instructed everyone to stop what they were doing, open every envelope, separate the ballots, and then place them into the trays, tabulators. Immediately thereafter, a second, firmer, louder, different male voice over the PA system repeated the instructions. During the time of the above 2 announcements, a statement was made over the PA that we could either finish in 1 hour or delay it and be a couple, 3 more hours. To say that I was shocked at what I just heard would be a vast understatement. I made my rounds observing the workers had indeed stopped checking the ballots. The pace of operation picked up substantially as the only operations being performed were opening the ballot, separating the tab, and sending it to the tabulators. No checking at all was performed after 2 a.m. In spite of this fact, it still required 3 more hours to process all of the ballots. I personally estimate that 10 to 20,000 ballots were scanned without the required checks of name to the qualified voter list and the other required checks of the envelope for seal, signature, and date. In my opinion, none of these ballots after 2 a.m. should have been allowed to count. I drove home feeling tired, shocked, and saddened by the chaos and possible fraud that I had witnessed. After getting some much-needed rest, I began the process of notifying people of what I'd seen. Initially, I had no idea that I should notify the Wayne County Board of Canvassers. I really didn't understand the process that well. Initially, I emailed Marion Sheridan, the OCRP, the RNC, the MRP, and several other political leaders that I knew. After a day or so, I began to include Bill Hartman, who is and was a member of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, in my correspondence. The attorney for the MRP advised me how to make a correct and clean copy of my affidavit. I took his advice, obtained a notarized version for future communications. On August 16th, 2 days before the Wayne County Board of Canvassers were to certify the results of the Detroit elections, I presented my notarized copy of my affidavit and asked that it be made part of the official record. I was told that all members of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, the Detroit Clerk's Office, the election directors, the Wayne County Attorney were presented a copy of my legal affidavit. I am told that my affidavit, combined with the grossly imbalanced results of the elections, caused quite a stir. This stir led to the Wayne County Board of Canvassers making what I'm told is an unprecedented request. One, it was requested that Secretary of State appoint a monitor to supervise the November election in Detroit Absent Voter Counting Board. And number two, it was requested that the State Department of Elections investigate the training and processes used by the City of Detroit. I have been told that this kind of request by a board of canvassers has never been made before. Initially, mainstream media failed to report the problems that we challengers observed in Detroit. The Detroit News did report that the Wayne County election data that showed 72% of the absentee voting ballots in Michigan's largest city, Detroit, had ballot counts that were out of balance. That means the number of voters tracked in precinct poll books did not match the number of ballots counted. This also means, and this will get you, that 72% of those precincts would not be recountable due to what I'm going to call an arcane Michigan election law. And I think we all need to ask our public legislators to change that. You remember that being a subject in 2016? All of the imbalance in Detroit could not be recounted. Eventually, Fox News, Channel 2, interviewed me and others and began to roll out what I'm going to call the other side of the story. On August 24th, I was interviewed by Kyle Olson of Breitbart News. The Breitbart story and radio interview went viral nationwide that day, and to my pleasant surprise, President Trump retweeted my Breitbart interview that day. At that point, I knew that our discoveries of gross incompetence in Detroit would not be ignored. Reporter Craig Mauger of the Detroit News interviewed me recently and asked the question, what motivated me to become a challenger? My answer was love. Love of my children, love of my grandchildren, love of my friends, and love of my country. I believe that this election will be the most important election of my lifetime. I'm not done. But clap is good. Furthermore, I believe that this election will determine whether we continue the tradition of being a Christian nation with a constitutional republic form of government whose main purpose, as delineated in the Declaration of Independence, is to protect the rights of the governed, or we will go down the evil path of socialism. The observations of our Detroit Absent Voter County Board team have been reported in many news sources locally and nationwide. These sources include the Detroit News, Fox News Detroit, and Breitbart, to name a few. My goal in talking to you today is to stress the enormous need to protect our election and motivate you to take action to protect our republic. As an additional point of interest, I would like to cite the viewpoint of the Department of Justice. Last year, in the preamble of an indictment against an individual charged with financial contribution fraud, the Department of Justice stated their underlying rationale to pursue the indictments as, and I quote, to deter abuses of the Election Act and thus instill public confidence in the election process against corruption and the appearance of corruption, unquote. The federal government and we feel very strongly regarding the importance of election integrity. And I just want to make a point of that. There are 2 points there. One is that we have a fair election. The other one is, equally important, that people believe we have a fair election. I don't think you can place one in importance above the other. So our country needs your help to protect our beloved republic. Please sign up today. If you have a desire to protect our republic and are willing to volunteer on November 3rd, you may send your name, email, and phone number to guard the vote, or you can sign up today. I think Joanna's got some forms, right? We cannot overstate what is at stake and what will happen should we fail. God bless our great country, and thank you for listening.